Hi, I'm R.K. Thorne, author of Romantasy and space opera, and I'm here today to talk about the behind the scenes for my novel, Mage Slave. Mage Slave was a book that I started pretty far back. I think it might have been 2010 or 2011, and I had a really good time writing it. It was one of my first things I really spent a lot of time on, but in particular, it was the first novel I ever finished. Finishing was really hard for me, and I'm going to talk more about how to get to the end if that's something you struggle with in another video. But the first thing that I did when I was getting started with Mage Slave was I actually worked on it as part of NaNoWriMo. So I wouldn't recommend NaNoWriMo today because I do feel like the program has gotten a little bit bogged down in mishandling some personnel issues and some other things. Let's keep kids safe. But you can still do National Novel Writing Month on your own without getting involved in NaNoWriMo, or you can organize your own group of people to do National Novel Writing Month. And basically the way that it goes is you try to write 50,000 words in a month. Some people do variations on it, like they will do writing 30,000 words in a month, writing as many words as you can, but going with your own goal. And I think that all of that is really great. I think that for me, I never got close to 50,000 words. The closest I got was to about 30,000 words. I've attempted to write NaNoWriMo about 3 times and I've never won. And I think that's just because November is kind of a terrible month for it. There's Thanksgiving, there's getting ready for the holidays. Usually somebody gets sick because it's cold and flu season. And so, yeah, it's not the greatest. So I tried that. And I think one of the things that was really helpful for me with Nano was that it helped me get over my critical editor voice. So it helped me just get writing and not think too hard about how I was writing it or what I was saying, but just try to focus on the story and getting something fun down on the page. And that was really helpful. I tried a couple of other tactics at the same time. One thing was from a workshop, someone had recommended to get an index card and write the premise on the card. So not exactly a log line, but like the thing that was exciting you about that story that was going to drive that story. And having that single independent line that would help you kind of come back to the same thing every time. And that really did help to know that that was kind of the point of what I was doing. I also I was sort of outlining with index cards as I went. So I always would like to be a plotter, but I'm not really. I'm kind of a pantser. And so that's why I think Nano actually worked pretty well. I sort of outline as I'm going. So I start establishing what the structure is and start applying all of those tools like kind of as I go, but I can't make the end of the story ahead of time, especially step by step, or I just will never finish it. But I did have a sort of vague plan for the ending, and I always need that a little bit. So I kind of know where I'm going and what kind of epiphany we want to have at the end. I also did some other tactics where I was giving myself rewards every so often. I think it was either 5K or 10K, and I did some things like a new CD, a new blanket, a new sweater, a new piece of cheesecake. And I think that did help because it did help me kind of have some reward that wasn't like the end, the finishing of the novel. And I think that it also helped me kind of feel like there was more to the process of counting the words than just feeling like I'm not there yet, and feeling like focusing on the negative part. There was like a positive that I was working toward all the time. I also had a pretty interesting little schedule where I picked certain days of the week that I wanted to work. And if I didn't work those days, I tried to reschedule it so that I had to get at least 2 or 3 days of writing in. And if I couldn't, it wasn't that big of a deal, but I knew that I was behind or that it wasn't happening. And it kind of helped me strike a balance between routine and sort of like rigidly forcing it, making sure that it happened, and beating myself up when it just couldn't happen. So I think that was really helpful. And eventually I took my index cards and I laid them out on a piece of big butcher paper, which I still have, which really helped me in sort of the plotting of it. But I did not finish it during NaNoWriMo. I only got to around 30,000 words. And when I realized that that was actually a pretty reasonable pace, because I was writing about a third of the novel, pretty fast, not crazy, but I wasn't really going to be done because 100,000 words was about where it was headed, and that's a pretty average length for a novel. So I was like, oh, okay, this is going to take me longer than this. So that sort of helped me, it made me lose steam a little bit. But I kept going. I did finish it around, I think it was January or February, and then I started revising, did tons of revisions on my own. I did a round of developmental edits. I had some friends read it for me as alpha readers, beta readers, and tried to, ask their opinion, like, do you think this is publishable? Did this part confuse you? Did this part, did you like, what parts did you like? What parts did you not like? And I think that really helped in terms of me moving from the writing phase into the publishing phase and figuring out what was I going to do with this book. And I can talk more in another video about like why I use a certain path or not in terms of publishing. But for me, I was figuring out around the same time that indie publishing was going to be the right thing for me. And so those beta readers were wonderful and absolutely critical in helping me figure out if it was ready, if it needed more work. And they sort of said all signs point to go. So I said, well, let's give this a try, kind of tried to spread the word about it, and started, working on getting a cover and doing all the things that you do to publish things. But yeah, so that was sort of the process that I worked on while I was working on it. There were other things that I did. I mean, I usually listen to a lot of music when I'm writing, or not even when I'm writing, but in order to like get into the mindset of the music. I had playlists that sort of helped me get into the mindset of the emotions that I felt the characters would be having. There was a funny thing. I actually heard a story. I think it was about a British royal, but I'm not sure. But obviously this was like over 10 years ago now. But where they were talking about someone like kind of a prince who would like overhear or like eavesdrop on what was going on and try to like listen through the floorboards to hear like the tales that the servants and other things in the castle were going on. And it gave me just all these ideas about how sometimes people that are royalty in these stories are kind of excluded from normal life, and that it could be kind of fun to have somebody who was excited to get away from that. And that was one of the sort of plot bunnies that germinated this idea, one of the seeds that was planted. And yeah, so I think it was always interesting to me to try to come up with a situation where magic is kind of forbidden or oppressed, even though those are kind of like more powerful people. And that, in some ways that doesn't always make sense, but it's actually a pretty popular trope that comes up where, these people that are magical and so therefore have all this power over the people that could be around them somehow manage to get themselves into a situation where they're the ones with less political power or less social power, things like that. And so I always thought that was kind of an interesting concept to bring into play. I do have a prequel idea where I was trying to play out on the page how that happened, how this system came to be, and it's referred to a little bit in like the later novels, but I could never really make the prequel work without having like a really tragic, sad ending, and I felt like I just didn't want to do that to people. Maybe I should still write it, but I don't personally prefer tragic endings. I prefer optimistic endings, happy endings, or inspiring endings, but not necessarily the down in the dumps ending, although they can be done well in the right ways. But yeah, so it's just not me. So yeah, so that's sort of some of the ideas that fed into Mage Slave. And I hope if you're interested in it, you check it out. You can get it on Amazon in ebook and on audiobook. It's available on Spotify and in your library and also on my direct site. So it's on shop.rkthorne.com, or you can just sort of Google Mage Slave and start looking around. It's also available in print and hardback. So yeah, that is the sort of behind the scenes of writing Mage Slave. I hope that was fun, and let me know if you have any thoughts or questions I didn't get to in the comments, and have a great day.